Defiance. The U.S. Dauntless shuddered under another barrage of Valkyrie energy weapons. Commander Maya Reeves gripped her command chair as the tactical display showed 3 more human vessels winking out of existence, their crews lost in silent flashes of light and debris. The Battle of Epsilon Eridani was turning into humanity's most devastating defeat yet. Shield integrity at 17%, called out Lieutenant Park, her voice unnaturally calm despite the chaos surrounding them. Reactor containment holding, but barely. The bridge crew worked with desperate efficiency, each movement precise, each command potentially their last. Through the forward view screen, Maya watched as the alien vessels moved with impossible grace, their hulls gleaming with a pearlescent sheen that seemed to flow like liquid metal. The Valkyrie had appeared 18 months ago, their intentions clear from the first encounter: systematic extermination of human colonies. "They're targeting the Melbourne," reported Tactical Officer Ramon Diaz, his dark eyes fixed on his console. "Their entire pattern is focusing on ships with the heaviest energy weapons." Maya's eyes narrowed. Something about that observation clicked in her analytical mind. "Show me the attack patterns from the last 3 engagements," she ordered. "Overlay them with weapon discharge data." As the tactical display reconfigured, Maya felt a chill run down her spine. The Valkyrie weren't just winning. They were dissecting humanity's defensive strategies with surgical precision. Each human technological advance was countered within days. Improved shield harmonics. The Valkyrie adjusted their weapons frequencies. Enhanced targeting systems. The aliens simply moved faster, their ships dancing through space like quicksilver. But there it was, a microscopic anomaly in the aliens' defensive screens. For a fraction of a second during their own weapons discharge, their shields exhibited a harmonic fluctuation, so brief that it would be invisible to anyone not specifically looking for it. "Lieutenant Park, full spectral analysis on Valkyrie shield modulations during weapons fire," Maya ordered. The science officer looked confused but complied. "Commander, I'm seeing a temporary phase variance in their quantum field integrity. It's like their shields have to partially collapse to allow their own weapons fire." A plan began forming in Maya's mind. Not a way to win this battle that was already lost, but perhaps a way to win the war. "Helm, plot an emergency jump trajectory to these coordinates," she commanded, inputting a series of numbers. "We're leaving." "Commander," Diaz questioned, his voice sharp with surprise. "The Melbourne still has crew aboard." "And they're already dead." Maya cut him off, her voice hard but not unfeeling. "We have something more valuable than another heroic last stand. We have information." As the Dauntless's quantum drive spooled up, Maya took one last look at the battle. The Melbourne erupted into a plume of superheated gas and twisted metal, another 47 souls lost to the void. But if her hunch was right, they wouldn't have died in vain. 2 weeks later, Maya stood in an abandoned mining facility deep within Mars's Valles Marineris. The cavernous chamber had once housed massive ore processors. Now it contained a motley assortment of equipment, hastily assembled workstations, and 3 of the most brilliant scientific minds that had survived the Valkyrie onslaught. "A railgun," Dr. Eliza Chen repeated, her voice thick with skepticism. "You want us to build a weapon that was obsolete before the first moon colony was established." Beside her, Dr. Turek Alpha Him nodded in agreement. "The Valkyrie used directed energy weapons that can cut through 20 meters of reinforced hull plating. What good would a kinetic projectile do?" The third scientist, a lanky theoretical physicist named Jonas Makey, remained silent, his fingers tapping a rhythmic pattern on the table's surface as his mind worked through the problem. Maya activated a holographic display showing the data she'd collected. "The Valkyrie have built their entire defense doctrine around energy manipulation," she explained. "Their shields are essentially quantum interference generators that neutralize any coherent energy assault. But kinetic energy is something else entirely," Mbeki finished, his eyes lighting up with understanding. "Pure momentum transfer. No complex harmonics to disrupt. no frequencies to match, just Newton's laws. Exactly, Maya nodded. I believe the Valkyrie have become so specialized, so reliant on their quantum field technology, that they've forgotten, or perhaps never considered, the fundamentals. Dr. Chen still looked dubious. Even if you're right, conventional railgun technology can't achieve the velocities needed to penetrate their hulls. The projectiles would disintegrate from the electromagnetic forces alone. Maya gestured to the assembled equipment. That's why I need you three. Dr. Chen, your work on molecular bonding was revolutionary before the war. Dr. Alpha Him, your advances in electromagnetic field modulation could solve the acceleration problem. And Dr. Mbeki, your theoretical models of matter under extreme stress could help us design a projectile that won't shatter. Slowly, reluctantly, the three scientists began to see the possibilities. What followed was 8 weeks of brutal, non-stop work. They slept in shifts, ate when they remembered, and pushed the boundaries of what was theoretically possible. The first prototype looked almost primitive, a 20-meter electromagnetic tube connected to massive capacitor banks. The projectile was equally simple, a 30-centimeter dart composed of a tungsten-uranium alloy with a molecular structure specifically designed to maintain cohesion under extreme acceleration. Capacitors charged to 98%, reported Alpha Him, his fingers dancing across the control interface. Field harmonics stable. Projectile integrity nominal, added Chen, monitoring the molecular bonds of the dart with a quantum scanner. Though I still think this is going to vaporize the moment we fire. Maya stood behind them, her uniform replaced by practical work clothes, stained with engine oil and coolant fluid. If we're right, this changes everything, she said quietly. If we're wrong, we're dead anyway. Mbeki finished with a grim smile. The Valkyrie will reach Seoul within 6 months at their current pace. Maya nodded. Begin firing sequence. The capacitors discharged with a sound that was more felt than heard, a deep, bone-rattling thrum that resonated through the Martian bedrock. For a heartbeat, nothing seemed to happen. Then the sensors exploded with data. The target, a stack of hull plates salvaged from damaged warships, didn't just rupture. It wasn't even accurate to say it had been punctured. Where the projectile had struck, there was simply nothing. A perfectly cylindrical void through multiple layers of what had been considered impenetrable material. My God, whispered Chen, checking and rechecking her readings. The projectile maintained structural integrity at 0.15 light speed. The kinetic energy delivery was... She trailed off, unable to find words. Apocalyptic, Mbeki supplied, his voice hushed with awe. On this scale, it's like a tactical nuclear strike without the radiation. Maya stared at the perfect hole punched through the test plates, and completely undetectable until impact. No energy signature to track, no emissions to sense. For the first time since the war began, she felt something dangerously close to hope. Admiral Harrison Wade of Earth Defense Command was not impressed. A glorified cannon, he scoffed, leaning back in his chair in the secure bunker 50 meters beneath what remained of Geneva, while the Valkyrie are deploying weapons that bend space-time itself. Maya had expected resistance. The military leadership had built their entire strategic doctrine around matching the Valkyrie technologically, a race they were clearly losing. To suggest a fundamental shift, especially one based on technology considered archaic, was threatening on multiple levels. With respect, Admiral, she replied, keeping her voice even. Our current approach has cost us 37 colonies and almost 1 billion lives. The Valkyrie adapt to every technological advance we make within days. Dr. Mbeki stepped forward, activating a holographic display. We've run over 5,000 simulations. In every scenario, our railgun technology penetrates Valkyrie defenses with near-perfect efficiency. Simulations, Wade repeated dismissively, based on limited data from a single engagement. 3 engagements, Maya corrected. And we verified that the shield fluctuation pattern is consistent across all Valkyrie vessel classes. General Sato, the oldest of the military leaders present, had remained silent throughout the exchange. Now she leaned forward, her weathered face thoughtful. "Commander Reeves, your service record speaks for itself. But what you're proposing would require us to retrofit our entire fleet with this primitive technology. The resources alone would be a fraction of what we're currently expending on quantum weapons development." Maya interrupted, bringing up a cost analysis. "The materials are abundant, the manufacturing process is straightforward, and most importantly, it works." The room fell silent as the military leaders studied the data. Maya knew what they were seeing, not just a weapon, but a complete paradigm shift in how humanity approached space warfare. Admiral Wade opened his mouth to object again, but General Sato raised a hand to silence him. "Demonstrate it," she said simply. "Not in a controlled test environment. Show us this weapon in actual combat conditions." Maya exchanged glances with her team. This was more than they'd hoped for. "We'll need a ship," she said. Sato's weathered face betrayed the ghost of a smile. "Take the Dauntless. It's your command anyway." "But Commander," she fixed Maya with a steely gaze, "if this fails, there won't be enough of humanity left to attempt anything else." Maya nodded, understanding the weight of the responsibility. "We won't fail, General. The Valkyrie have forgotten something fundamental about warfare. Sometimes the simplest solution is the most devastating." As they left the meeting, Dr. Chen fell into step beside her. "They're giving us just enough rope to hang ourselves," she muttered. "No," Maya replied, allowing herself the first genuine smile in months. "They're giving us just enough rope to hang the Valkyrie." Reckoning. The U.S. Dauntless hung in the darkness of space, silhouetted against the blue-white glow of Ta City. Once a sleek destroyer bristling with energy weapon arrays and quantum torpedo launchers, the ship now bore a strange, almost primitive-looking modification, a massive electromagnetic tube running nearly half the length of its hull. On the bridge, Commander Maya Reeves studied the tactical display. Intelligence reports indicated the Valkyrie battle group would arrive within hours, part of their systematic advance through human-controlled systems. "Railgun capacitors at full charge," reported Lieutenant Park from her science station. "Field harmonics stable and aligned. Projectile loaded and integrity confirmed," added Dr. Chen, who had insisted on joining the combat mission. Her expertise in molecular structures made her the best qualified to monitor the specialized kinetic dart. Maya nodded, feeling the weight of the moment. If they failed here, Earth's military leadership would abandon the Railgun project, pouring their remaining resources into conventional weapons development, a strategy that had consistently failed against the aliens. "Incoming quantum ripple," announced Tactical Officer Dias. "Valkyrie signatures detected. 4 vessels emerging from FTL." The alien ships materialized like liquid mercury condensing from nothing, their pearlescent hulls gleaming in the light of Ta City. They moved with their characteristic fluid grace, immediately detecting the lone human vessel and moving to encircle it. "They're scanning us," Park reported. "They've detected the railgun assembly, but their energy readings suggest confusion. I don't think they understand what they're looking at." Maya allowed herself a thin smile. "That's because they're looking for energy weapons, quantum signatures, radiation patterns. They don't recognize a simple magnetic accelerator as a threat." The Valkyrie ships continued their approach, their formation suggesting they considered the Dauntless little more than target practice. Their arrogance was understandable. In previous engagements, it had typically taken at least 5 human vessels to pose any threat to a single Valkyrie warship. "They're charging weapons," Dias reported, his voice tight with tension. "Hold position," Maya ordered. "We need them to fire first." The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances, but no one questioned the command. They trusted her, even if her strategy seemed suicidal. The lead Valkyrie vessel released a pulse of blinding energy that streaked toward the Dauntless. The ship's shields flared and buckled under the assault, alarms blaring across the bridge. "Shield integrity at 42%. Park called out. "Direct hit to forward sections." But Maya was focused on the tactical display, watching the energy patterns of the Valkyrie vessel. There it was, the momentary fluctuation in their defensive screens as they discharged their weapons. "Target locked. Dias confirmed. Firing solution computed." Maya drew a deep breath. "Fire railgun." The Dauntless shuddered as the massive electromagnetic coils discharged in sequence, accelerating the specialized projectile to a significant fraction of light speed. There was no visible beam, no energy signature, just a silent, invisible harbinger of destruction. For a fraction of a second, nothing happened. Then the lead Valkyrie ship seemed to shiver. A perfect cylindrical hole appeared through its hull, then another as the projectile continued through and struck a second vessel behind it. Both ships hung motionless for a moment before secondary explosions began to ripple across their hulls. "Direct hit," Dias reported, his voice barely containing his excitement. "Both targets critically damaged. Their shield harmonics. They never even adjusted to defend against kinetic penetration." The remaining Valkyrie vessels paused, their fluid movements hesitating for the first time. Maya could almost imagine their confusion as they tried to comprehend what had just happened. "Railgun recycling," Dr. Chen announced. "Capacitors recharging. 90 seconds to firing capability." The Valkyrie recovered quickly, their remaining ships accelerating toward the Dauntless with deadly intent. Energy weapons lashed out, hammering the human vessel's already weakened shields. "Evasive maneuvers," Maya ordered. "Keep our bow toward the enemy. We just need to survive long enough for one more shot." The ship corkscrewed through space, its engines straining as it fought to maintain position. Damage reports flooded in from multiple decks, but Maya remained focused on the tactical display. "Railgun charged and ready," Chen called out as the ship shuddered under another hit. "Target locked on the lead vessel," Dias confirmed. "Fire." Again, the ship bucked as the electromagnetic accelerator discharged its lethal payload. This time, the Valkyrie vessel attempted to evade, its liquid metal hull rippling as it tried to shift its form, a defensive capability that had made them nearly invulnerable to conventional weapons. It made no difference. The kinetic projectile, traveling at a significant fraction of light speed, crossed the distance almost instantly. It punched through the alien vessel's reconfiguring hull, its shields unable to disperse the pure kinetic energy. The Valkyrie ship didn't explode so much as it simply came apart, the perfect hole through its core disrupting whatever technologies kept its flowing hull intact. The final alien vessel hesitated, then abruptly reversed course, its drives flaring as it accelerated away from the battle. "They're retreating," Dias announced, disbelief evident in his voice. "The last Valkyrie ship is breaking engagement." A cheer erupted across the bridge, quickly silenced by Maya's raised hand. "Track them," she ordered. "I want to know exactly where they're going." 3 days later, Maya stood in the same underground bunker in Geneva, facing the combined military leadership of Earth. This time, however, the atmosphere was markedly different. Gone was the skepticism and dismissal. In their place was something Maya hadn't seen on the faces of Earth's commanders in a long time: hope. Admiral Wade, who had been the most vocal opponent of the Railgun project, now leaned forward eagerly. "The Valkyrie vessel that escaped Ha City has rejoined their main fleet, but intelligence suggests they're no longer advancing toward Sol. They appear to be regrouping." "They're reassessing," Maya confirmed. "Their entire technological development has been focused on energy manipulation, both offensive and defensive. They've encountered a weapon that operates outside their paradigm, and they don't know how to counter it." Dr. Mbeki stepped forward, activating a holographic display showing manufacturing schematics. "We've refined the design based on combat data. The new railguns are more compact, with improved cooling systems and faster capacitor recharge rates. Most importantly, we can retrofit existing vessels with minimal modifications. General Sato studied the production timeline with a critical eye. How quickly can we equip the entire fleet? With full manufacturing priority, 3 weeks for the primary battle groups. Maya answered. Another 2 months for all remaining vessels. Admiral Wade frowned. The Valkyrie won't give us that much time once they understand the threat. No, Maya agreed, which is why we don't wait. We take the offensive immediately with the ships we can modify now. The Valkyrie expect us to be defensive, reactive. We need to surprise them again. The plan took shape quickly. Within 2 weeks, 37 Earth vessels had been retrofitted with the new railgun technology. Not the entire fleet, not even close, but enough to form a strike force unlike anything humanity had fielded since the war began. Maya found herself promoted to admiral and given command of this new fleet. The irony wasn't lost on her. Advancing from commander to admiral in 2 weeks, bypassing several ranks entirely. But Earth's military hierarchy had been decimated by the war, and traditional protocols meant little in the face of extinction. Battle group assembled and ready, Admiral, reported Captain Diaz. Promoted himself from his previous position as the Dauntless's tactical officer. All vessels reporter, Maya studied the tactical display showing the assembled fleet. The ships were positioned in a new formation she had developed specifically for railgun combat, a 3-dimensional matrix that allowed for overlapping fields of fire while minimizing the risk of friendly projectiles damaging Allied vessels. The Valkyrie fleet has been detected at the edge of the Proxima Centauri system, continued Diaz. Intelligence suggests they're testing new shield configurations. They're attempting to adapt. Maya nodded. It was exactly what she'd expected. But they're still thinking in terms of energy deflection, she replied. They don't understand that there's no way to deflect the level of kinetic energy we're delivering. The human fleet made the jump to Proxima Centauri, emerging from FTL in a precise formation less than 2 light minutes from the gathered Valkyrie armada. The alien vessels immediately began to move, their flowing hulls shifting into attack configurations. They're adjusting their shield harmonics, reported the tactical officer on Maya's flagship. Energy signatures suggest some kind of reinforcement pattern. It won't help them, Maya stated simply. All vessels, commence firing sequence. Primary targeting protocol. Across the human fleet, railguns discharged in a synchronized pattern. There were no energy beams to see, no torpedoes to track. Just the invisible passage of hypervelocity projectiles crossing the void at relativistic speeds. The effect on the Valkyrie fleet was catastrophic. Ship after ship suffered the same fate. Perfect cylindrical holes punched through their supposedly impenetrable defenses, their flowing hulls unable to adapt quickly enough to the fundamental physics of kinetic impact. The aliens attempted to return fire, their energy weapons lashing out with desperate intensity. A few human vessels were hit, their shields collapsing under the onslaught. But the new formation meant that for every human ship damage, at least 3 Valkyrie vessels were destroyed. They're breaking formation, Diaz reported, unable to keep the triumph from his voice. Attempting to retreat. Maya watched the tactical display with grim satisfaction. Maintain pursuit. Don't let them regroup. The battle, if it could even be called that, lasted less than 20 minutes. When it was over, the once mighty Valkyrie fleet had been reduced to scattered debris and fleeing vessels. The human casualties were minimal. 3 ships damaged beyond repair, but with most crews successfully evacuated. In the quiet aftermath, Maya stood alone in her ready room, staring at a star chart showing human and Valkyrie-controlled space. For the first time since the war began, the lines of control were shifting in humanity's favor. A soft chime announced Dr. Chen's arrival. The data from the engagement is being analyzed, she reported. The Valkyrie attempted at least 7 different shield configurations. None of them made any difference against the railguns. Maya nodded. They'll keep trying. They're not unintelligent, just specialized. Eventually, they'll develop a defense, by which time we'll have developed the next generation of kinetic weapons. Chen countered with a rare smile. The manufacturing process for the gravity-assisted accelerator is already being tested. Maya allowed herself a small smile in return. The fundamental lesson here isn't about railguns specifically, she said. It's about thinking differently. The Valkyrie became so fixated on energy manipulation, on complexity, that they forgot the basics. And humans? Chen asked. We adapt, Maya replied simply. It's what we've always done. The Valkyrie thought they were facing a primitive species clinging to borrowed technology. They didn't understand that sometimes the oldest solutions are the most effective. She turned back to the star chart, where the tactical computer was already plotting possible courses for the next offensive. We have a long way to go before this war is over. But today we reminded the Valkyrie, and ourselves, of something important. What's that? Chen asked. Never underestimate a species that still remembers how to throw rocks.